Justice for all.
Before we begin, I want to apologize. It's obvious, you can tell I've got a cold, so you can tell where I've been. I just spent 10 days with my grandkids. So, and then, you know, that follows you. The first thing on the agenda is amendments and approvals to the draft agenda. I have one that I wanted to add. We had received it in a prior packet, but we never, I don't recall we ever took any action on it, and that was the schedule for the budget hearings. And the budget, starting with February 20th. We did adopt it? Okay, then forget about it. Okay, other amendments or additions or approvals?
Bob, I'd like to take off sunset at sunset at this time.
You have a motion to do that. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion?
Why?
I'm not prepared at this time to talk about it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm not prepared to talk about it at this time.
If I can weigh in my 2 cents, we received a letter requesting that Mr. Benton be removed as the council liaison for Sunset at Sunset.
That, by the way, that was the sole subject on the agenda for the purpose of today, was the request from the committee.
All right, well,
I think we keep putting this off. I'm sorry, I thought
There's
you
a
were-
motion, Bob.
I understand, but
Mr.
there's
Mayor,
discussion
can I-
on the motion. Go ahead, you had the floor. Go ahead.
please. This matter should be addressed offline. If they have issues, they have meetings, they could discuss it at their offline meetings. And I think it would be more appropriate if that was done. Like any other citizen committee, whether it's what we had of the ERC or Sunset at Sunset, is under the town structure and is directed by the council. And that practice should continue. Now, if they have issues, then they can discuss them offline. I don't know what they are. I read the letter. I was surprised to find out that this was requested in October, and now here we are in the latter part of January. So I think first there should be an offline discussion and get their issues resolved.
Well, any other discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We're removing it from this agenda. Does this mean we're removing it
Oh,
altogether?
It's yours, you know, I don't have any say about it. All I can tell you, my advice is it's got to go on an agenda. It has to be addressed by the council, and it has to be addressed in public. How it's addressed,
It can be addressed at a meeting.
it doesn't have to be today, but the substance needs to be addressed.
It can
Okay.
be addressed at a sunset and sunset meeting, because that's open to the public.
Yeah, but
Yes.
May
no,
I?
it's addressed to I think the council, it's got to be on a council agenda at some point in time.
May I
What?
please speak to that? I do not believe that this is a subject that should be discussed at a council meeting. However, if it has to be at a meeting, I will not participate in that discussion because I do not believe in this type of activity on a council. I will certainly honor my duty to vote, but I will not participate in any discussion on this subject. This has been handled in a poor way. I think it could have been handled better. This type of issue only serves to divide our community, not bring it together. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
this Sunset at Sunset keeps coming up, and I do have one question. When Mr. Serrato says offline, what does that mean, like in closed session, or?
At the Sunset at Sunset committee meetings they have, which is public session, that's in the public.
Okay, but
Those are public meetings.
But
I understand that. So this should all this should be discussed in public in the council.
Well, it is because the request was made to council. We have to address the letter. Don't have to do it today. And how it's addressed may be up for debate. We definitely have rules as far as personal attacks and things like that that we want to stay away from. But it was addressed to council, and it's a decision the council is going to have to make. But as for right now, the only issue really is removing it from this agenda today. That's the motion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, any other additions or deletions from the agenda, the proposed agenda? Pardon? Oh, yeah, there will be no closed session this morning. We received a call late last night from the attorney that he will not be able to attend, so there's no, we could sit and talk among ourselves.
Mayor, I just have a question. On regards to the cabanas and beach patrol, I thought we took care of this.
Well, no,
Already.
my understanding in talking, individually talking with people and talking with the chief, that arose out of the memo, the email that Councilman Serrato sent out about issues that the fire company had with beach patrol based on conversations he'd had with the chief. That's how it got on there. It's not really, but in talking with the chief, there are a couple of, it's not a whole presentation because we had the presentation back in November. There are a couple of issues that the chief wants direction up from council on with regard to enforcement. That's basically what it is. Am I right? Am I speaking correct, Kevin?
Oh, you mean Chief Kevin?
Yeah,
Police officer.
Kevin.
Well, there were also issues that were, at least I didn't hear, and I realize I'm deaf, that seem to be, that have not been communicated, that I would like to review.
You have a fire chief in charge of this,
Well-
and
If we're not going to remove it, let's talk about it when we get to it, the agenda.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just if we have time, I don't know, I wish not to have this a long meeting, but I'd like to put on the agenda, just as a start to conversation, that somehow we need to improve our relationship with the business community. If we have time to get to it, but we need to start the conversation.
All right, that would be an added for this agenda. Do I have a motion to add it to this agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second, I guess.
Yeah. If you want it on, you better second it. Any other discussion? All right, then a motion to approve the draft agenda as modified. I need a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Me? Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the next item, the closed session, is not going to take place. One thing that was eliminated here is, that's not present, is comments of council or the mayor. There's a couple comments that I wanted to make, items that I needed to bring people's attention. One, in the conduct of council business, one of the concerns that I've had repeatedly is people talking over one another, and it makes it very difficult to recognize council people appropriately. One of the solutions that recently came to my attention is a thing called a talking stick. I don't know if you've heard about it, but Senator Susan Collins used it with Republican colleagues when they were talking about the
They threw it at each other.
no, what it is it's a Native American policy that you can't talk unless you're holding the talking stick. So you're prohibited from talking unless you're holding the talking stick. We may have to go to that. I don't have a talking stick with me today, but I think that's not a bad idea. Anyway, the two announcements I want to make. One is on February 5th at 5 o'clock. Now, there's also a council meeting at 6 o'clock on the February 5th, but at 5 o'clock on February 5th, there's a hearing here in this room by the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission on proposed no wake zone near the Sunset Beach boat ramp extending to the shore from 120 yards east of the bridge to 50 yards west of the bridge. If you have interest and you want to make any comments, it should appear the person in the Wildlife Resource Commission who's responsible for it is Betsy Haywood, and Lisa would have her phone number and email address where you could comment as well. But that's on the 5th. The second thing that I want to make an announcement about was yesterday I attended a press conference with Governor Cooper in Wilmington on with regard to offshore drilling, and the substance of there was myself and I attended on behalf of the council because we had taken a resolution, we'd taken a formal position with regard to it, and also residents of the town of Sunset Beach. There were several other mayors, and not as many as I would have liked to have seen, a lot of New Hanover County commissioners. The substance was, if you didn't see it was on the news last night, but the substance of it basically is that the governor is taking a position in opposition to offshore drilling, but the focus of the news conference was his approach to the Secretary Zinke. He's the environmental secretary of the Secretary of the Interior of the federal government. Anyway, he's the one that's responsible for administering. If you users are not aware, the President administration has opened up the entire Atlantic coast and the entire Pacific coast to offshore drilling. And we've taken a position in opposition to it. There's about 30 other municipalities in North Carolina that have taken opposition to it, formal opposition to it. A number of individuals have. The governor of the state of Florida went to the federal government, to Secretary Zinke, and was exempted. The state of Florida is exempted. And the thrust of Governor Cooper's argument in his press conference was the two reasons on which the federal government relied in exempting Florida was tourism and public opposition. And the governor's position is that's exactly the situation in the state of North Carolina. And he said he picked up the phone, he talked to Secretary Zinke, and Zinke expressed an interest in coming down to look at our shoreline. In my experience, it's been most of the focus in North Carolina is the eastern Atlantic shoreline as opposed to the southern Atlantic where we are. But he's formally requested that North Carolina be exempted, as was Florida, and that in the event that it's not, the governor was speaking that the state's prepared to file suit and will sue the federal government. Anyway, I just wanted to give you an update on what that press conference is all about. And by the way, in connection with that, there's a public comment period on that. It's open until March. I don't know what the date is in March, but consider it March 1st, where you can communicate directly with that office. The phone number, I don't have a board here where I put it on it. It's 202-208-3100. I will, and we have a website address where you can make specific communication to the federal government with regard to the proposal of that North Carolina be exempted from the general policy.
Bob, if I could add to that, we should be pleased that the county commission has voted to be against offshore drilling.
I don't.
And this was at a meeting, I believe.
I don't think that was the result. I think it was that they voted not to support it. They didn't vote to oppose it. They voted not to support it.
Not to support it. Well, it's a step in the right direction.
I agree. Because formally they didn't, and formally the governor didn't either. And Congressman Rouser is in favor of it, of the offshore drilling, with certain conditions. I can't tell you what the conditions are, but
Representative Rouser put out a statement that as long as it was 30 miles or more offshore. he would support it, not
Okay.
within 30 miles.
In any event, the information on those will be on the website. I'll give it to Lisa. It was yesterday that the events occurred, so didn't have a chance to get it on. The next item on the agenda, anybody else have any comments?
No.
The next item on the agenda is public comments on agenda items only. This is an opportunity to, if you have a comment on an agenda item, please step forward, state your name and address, and try and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Gary Merritt. I live at 646 Oyster Bay Drive. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for allowing me to speak. The topic I would like to address is the proposed ERC rules and recommendations, responsibilities. Most of you know I was a member of the original ERC. This committee was comprised of 5 people who spent countless hours researching issues of environmental nature and reporting their findings to the town council. The findings of the ERC were never their opinion. They were opinions of experts in the fields the ERC was directed to research. When the ERC members determined unanimously their recommendations and findings were only being ignored by the council, they voted to resign and did so on April the 19th, 2017. On April the 18th, 2017, the council adopted an additional rule for the ERC committee. It stated, quote, "All communications from the committee shall be exclusively to the town council," end quote. This change was unknown to the committee when the decision to resign was made, but it proved the decision was the correct one. Going forward, we would be completely unable to communicate and educate the public. And so, our time spent researching the issue was related, in our opinion. The ERC always knew it had no authority to make decisions, but rather was charged with reporting findings and making recommendations to the council. We honored that. Fast forward to January 23rd, 2018, and take a look at the current proposal. There are 3 specific items of concern to me as a former member of the ERC. 1, paragraph 3, quote, "Any member may be removed for cause."
Hold on. Let everybody take a look. Let the council take a look at it. Identify what the paragraph you're talking about.
Gary, what page is that on?
It's paragraph 3 under the proposed rules. If you go to the meeting date, January 23rd staff report.
Page 19 of the packet.
Yes, I believe it's 17 or, 19.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Gary, what was that page?
Page 19. It quotes, "Any member of the may be removed for cause." My question is, or what are some examples of cause for removal? Concern number 2, under the responsibilities of the ERC, item 4, that's on page
21.
21, thank you. Education, quote, "Education of town residents," end quote.
20, yeah.
20.
I believe it was 20.
Yeah, it is.
Gary, what was your first one that I missed?
Page 19, I believe it
19.
was. 18.
19.
Gary, can I help to say real quick, I know we're not supposed to do this, but I'm gonna make a proposal that, Jan and the mayor sit together. This is a rough draft.
Correct.
They're gonna go sit down. If you have issues, if you just send it to Jan, and Jan and Bob will go over this draft and see if they can tweak it and make it better.
I will send her a copy of this document, and my issues are enumerated, or my questions are at the bottom of it.
That'd be great.
So for purposes of the public, and not just you, Gary, but for purposes of the public, in response to Councilman Serrato's request that that the reinstitution or the rejuvenation or repopulation of the ERC, because it never really went away, just wasn't populated, take place last fall, I discussed that I wasn't opposed to it, but you really have to define what the responsibilities are so we don't run into the same problems that we ran into previously that you were talking about. And he requested again that it be placed on the agenda for January 8th. There was no additional requirements or qualifications or restrictions or anything. It was never addressed. There was nothing ever presented. And it was going to be on the agenda for today. In early January, I drafted, and that's my draft, and it's totally my draft. It's not with input from anybody else on the council. A form that I drafted based upon my experience with environmental resource committees, based upon other state statutes. North Carolina does not have a state statute, which makes it difficult. It has a state statute for boards of adjustment. It has a state statute for planning board. It does not have one for an environmental resource. So the legislature hasn't limited or defined what the responsibilities are. There are some municipalities, and I don't claim that all of these are all of my thoughts. A lot of it was incorporation from other in North Carolina, other municipalities that go in here. The purpose was to start the discussion, to have something that people can grab hold of and say yes, no, or we should add this, or we should take it away. So it's not a be-all and end-all. It was not intended to be an end-all. And basically, that's what Mark is talking about. I had discussed that with council individually ahead of time, that when they saw this, because they didn't know it was coming, the purpose is that you have something you can sink your teeth into and say yes or no, or this is right, or this is wrong, or we need this, or we need that. And so it's a work in progress, but it's a start.
Mr. Mayor, could we please let Mr. Merritt finish so
I'm
we can
thinking-
get his comments for the record?
Good.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
My third concern is under prohibitions item number 4, quote, communicating with outside agencies or permitting authorities without the express approval of the town council. Concern number 3, referring to item number 4 on the list of things that's the quote, Sunset Beach ERC shall be permitted from the following. My concern is that this makes it virtually impossible to fulfill concern number 2, education of town residents. The only information the town residents would see would be whatever the council deemed necessary. This would limit their education on the issues researched as well as the findings and recommendations of the SBERC. It also dramatically limits research by the council's requirement to get permission to communicate with outside agencies or permitting authorities. This requirement also slows down the entire process. I have 2 requests. Please consider my concerns as you make decisions regarding the newly proposed SBERC. If it is approved with these controls, why would anyone want to serve? I know I wouldn't, and I would not recommend any of my friends or neighbors to do so if they asked my opinion. Thank you again for allowing me to express my opinion. I'm just trying to express my concern. The ERC was a very, in my opinion, productive organization in that it reached out to organizations that needed to be reached out to, and my concern is being limited, the scope of the limit of the ERC.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Other public comment on anything?
Sandy Payne, 365 Sea Trail Drive East. I also was a member of the former ERC committee, and my main concern is that number 4. I have 2 master's degrees, 1 postgraduate degree. I've conducted research. I've read a lot of research. Nowhere have you been limited to talking to people that have the authority to make the laws when you're conducting research. I think you've really underestimated the intelligence of the people of Sunset Beach by making that number 4. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, none appearing. We'll move to the next item on the agenda is,
Just before we leave this topic,
well,
We're still in public comments.
yeah,
Oh,
there is a section in the agenda where it's on the agenda. All right, the next item is old business, employee bonus structure.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Just a point of information. You received, that doesn't have anything to do with the employee bonuses, you received a piece of paper concerning Sunset at Sunset, comparison of years over from 2011 to 2017. And that was on the request of Councilman Benton yesterday, asked for an overview of by calendar year what the revenue was for each event in October of each year versus how much was spent to put on that event. The reason why it has to be by calendar year is it's budgeted by fiscal year, and there's revenue derived in one fiscal year, well, in 2 fiscal years, and there are expenditures also in 2 fiscal years. So by combining it to a calendar, putting it in calendar year form, you get a more realistic overview of what it costs to put on the festival and how much has been, what the net proceeds have been every year. To been over that time period, positive net proceeds of $20,000. The reason why it spans from 2011 to 2017 is because 2011 is when it came under the town's umbrella. Well, the town paid for the festival $13,000 a year from 2008 to 2011, and in 2011, the festival became self-supporting without taxpayer dollars. It survives since that time just on the revenue brought in by event sponsorships and booths, that kind of thing. Okay. Relative to the employee bonus structure, you have my staff report, which indicates, again, a multi-year comparison. We, for 5 years from fiscal 9 to fiscal 13, employees were awarded bonuses of 1% of their hourly salary, their hourly rate, not including overtime or anything like that, but just their gross wages on an hourly basis. And the next 3 years, from fiscal 14 to fiscal 16, employees were awarded bonuses of $500, flat $500. And then in fiscal 17, the department heads were given a pool of money with which to distribute bonuses, and the bonuses that year ranged from $200 per employee to $300.
Were those merit-based or just bonuses?
I don't know the criteria that the department heads
They were-
used.
I think they were merit-based.
They were, John.
They were
Merit-based.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they weren't end-of-year type of bonuses, just the department heads allocated based on their judgment of merit of the staff that was in their departments.
Okay, so under that system, employees received either 200, 250, or 300 that year. And then in our current budget cycle, our current year, fiscal 18, council deliberations last spring, when the budget was being determined, eliminated the bonuses altogether and instituted instead a merit raise that could be as much as 2.5% of an employee's gross wages. And you received a list recently on Councilman Serrato's request of who received what bonuses and what percentage those bonuses were of their gross salary. And then the final, based on all this information, if the staff was asked to evaluate the current situation, if employees were to get, if the council was to reverse its earlier decision and award employee bonuses to staff, there would be 39 people eligible to receive that bonus. This would be just for full-time employees that were hired prior to November 1st of last year. The total amount of cost to the town, if employees received a 1% bonus, the cost is $19,275 plus a 7.65% FICA requirement, Social Security and Medicare requirement on top of that. If they receive $500 bonuses, it would be $19,500, and if they receive $300 bonuses, it'd be $11,700. In all 3 cases, the cost for the bonuses plus the FICA would total less than 1% of the total salaries and wages paid to all employees. So we're looking at something right around $20,000 for the 1% increase and the $500 increase or bonus. And based on that information, staff recommends that employees be awarded a $500 bonus, which would benefit the lower wage employees to a greater extent than a 1% bonus across the board would.
Anybody have comment or want to make a motion?
I,
This
uh,
is, well, this is a workshop, right?
Yes,
So
but you
basically,
can take action if you want. I mean, it is not prohibited. You could take action if you want, it's not prohibited.
Well, I thought we
I
agreed
thought-
that we wouldn't do that unless it was an emergency.
unless there was a time-sensitive issue. Now, the first question becomes, that the end of the year was December 31st, and we're a month behind, so that could be considered a time-sensitive. I think this is one of the things we ought to talk about a little bit before we lock in whether we're going to do a decision today, although I would like that, but before we go. My thoughts is that a flat $500 bonus would be good for the staff, and it covers the full range of all the members of the staff, all 39 in my view. Those at the lower end, $500 is a higher percentage of their wages and would be more meaningful for them, while those at the higher end would appreciate the $500, but it's a smaller percentage of their salary. When you take that, if you go a 1% flat across the board, you talk the lower end is getting $300, $350. The higher end is getting $950 to $1,000, which skews who's getting the benefit. I think the annual bonus benefit should primarily be focused on making sure the greater benefit is on the lower end of the staff. I think another factor that comes in is that this approximate $20,000 or so does not cause a strain on the town, on our budget. I mean, we just gave back $121,000 to the general fund that was not used in the park and pumped it back in. And we took 25% of the increased fire fees that we got, and instead of putting it in for hiring another fireman, we put it back into the general fund. That's about $50,000. So about right there, there's $150,000 that we put back in the general fund at the end of the year that we weren't counting on. So the $20,000 in my mind doesn't hurt. But I think overall the bonus recognizes the quality of the town staff as a whole and the contributions they make year-round, to the safety, to the well-being, and the smooth functioning of our town of Sunset Beach. It's not a merit pay raise, and it does not permanently raise the pay base, but it does recognize what they do for us. It's a strong indication of support of the town council to the town staff, and I think it promotes morale. So my view is that the $500 flat fee bonus pay raise, bonus not pay raise, is a good measure for us as a council to take.
Other comment?
Charlie? I do, and I'm a little confused. Just before the meeting, we got this report on Sunset at Sunset, the finances, and, well, Bonnie brought it up, and I have some questions about it. I guess I can handle that later. But the pay raise, I know that when the bonus and going back to the merit increase, that town employees, their morale was affected when the merit increase went from 3% to 2.5%. And the morale of our employees is very important. If even counting what the town kicks in for FICA and all that, the town share, a $500 bonus would amount to $20,992, and I think that would be money well spent.
Other comment?
Yes.
Jen?
I think it's unfortunate that this has been brought up at this time for the very reason that Charlie mentioned, employee morale. I believe that we have employees that do need increases in their wages. But I think we need to take a more comprehensive look at that, not just with a Christmas bonus. I think we have other avenues we can do. We can do a wage survey, and we can increase the areas of our employees that need increasing based on sound advice and comparison of other towns. We also have COLA available to us. That's cost of living. I just think there's a more comprehensive way to do this, and it's not difficult to do a wage survey. I did it for 15 years. It's really easy, and it's a better way. It's a better way to treat your employees than a Christmas bonus.
I agree with that. There was a wage study done by council members, I forget how many years ago, and at the time, some council members and some citizens demanded a professional salary study, and the council didn't approve that. That's something we're going to deal with here, and I do believe a professional salary study is necessary. And talking about what, say, the department heads make, they make more money than a police officer or a firefighter or a public works employee. But they take their work home with them on the weekend. They have higher responsibility. I think the straight $500 bonus, when you look at it, what is a guy working public works, what is he going to take home out of that? It's really not much money after he pays the taxes and all. But I do agree the lower paid employees should be taken into consideration.
Councilman Strata, you going to have a comment?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My brain connectors are being scattered right now. I would prefer that we put this issue aside for the February 20th budget process, as we begin the budget process, because we need to look at the entire benefit schedule and programs. The history is we eliminated the bonus program because we went into a merit-based system. I have a hard time giving a person a bonus who isn't a marginal employee. More so, if there is a bonus program, it should be zero sum. We're going to have to reduce expenses elsewhere. I did implement the bonus program during my career, and we made it an incentive bonus program. Not everybody got a bonus. Only those employees and staff who came up with ideas that, if were implemented, that reduced sizable cost. I believe employees, we need their input, we need to reduce expenses, but we need to look at it from an incentive base. I do not believe just passing out bonuses. We've done that before, and it doesn't improve morale. Pay for performance improves morale. So I would just like to defer this until the budget process, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of issues behind this.
Mark, you have a comment?
I agree with Rich, we should defer it to February 23rd.
Jan, you going to say something?
Yes,
I'm
I
sorry,
do.
Mark, I can't hear you.
I just defer it to the budget meeting, Charlie, and look at all the issues, the survey, the salaries, see where we are with everybody else, and then go from there. Let's know all the facts before we just throw money out there.
We've got,
Well, Mark, you were the one that brought this up
No, I'm
after the December
Charlie, I'm
meeting.
for it, Charlie. I just want to know all the
Okay.
facts. I asked Bonnie yesterday to get me an estimate of all the overtime per employees looking at the overtime, we're paying about $7,000 as an average for our employees of 39 people. So Bonnie said she'd get that to me, so we'd make a right decision for the people of the town and their employees, that's all.
Jan?
I have a talking stick. It's my understanding that when the town council eliminated the bonus, you went to a merit system, which I agree with completely, and that was done with a personnel change. Will this not also require a personnel change, personnel policy change?
Yes.
Well,
Right.
I'm not sure that it would. I haven't read the personnel policy is about a 50-page document. I haven't read it with regard to this, so I couldn't answer that definitively. My take on it is that I advocated it last year that there needed to be a salary study, a position study, how it's done and who does it or what we could argue about that, but it needs to be done. But we're talking about basically two different things. The salary study is going to be a requirement for our budgeting process for 2019. This issue is as I understand it, was raised in 2018. And that's, so it's really two different things. I don't think you're going to find too much disagreement, maybe, on salary studies, the necessity of a salary study. How it's done is, you might have disagreement. But that's separate and apart from this issue that I perceived, and maybe incorrectly, was to correct something that felt should have been in the 18 budget, but because the salary study will only deal with the 19 budget.
Bob, the only reason I'm pushing it off at all is because I need to know how much was paid out in overtime for their employees. We may not need a bonus, but if I'm for a bonus, Charlie, but I want to make sure the numbers are right for everybody. It only takes a month.
Mr. Mayor,
Uh,
if I can just add a couple of things. We do have maybe, it doesn't take, as Jan said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to get the public records from other towns. Most of the staff in other towns are either made up of police or firemen. A fireman, other than experience, a fireman who has 10 years experience would probably be making more than a fireman who has 2 years experience. So this is all public record. It can be requested and we can get it. We have nearby towns and we should obtain that information from them.
If I could address that comment, the difficulty with that is that it's only as good as the information. The numbers don't make any difference. You have to look at job descriptions. You have to have the experience. Now, there may be somebody, I'm not saying we have to have a professional do it. There may be somebody that has the experience and the ability to do it in-house, but it takes more than just a salary schedule from another town, because you have to look at the job descriptions, you have to look at longevity, you have to look at benefits. It's a detailed process.
The other, I respect your comments. The other issue that we need to address, and we need, as Councilman Benton stated, we need all of the information, is that we all seem to be concerned about the people who are at the bottom level of our salary structures. And there's a phrase that is used which is called a living wage. And my concern is with the people who may be at the bottom of what we would consider a living wage. So there's a lot of information that we need, and I think just to throw money away now, I think is wasteful.
Mark, you said for the 20th, the only thing we have on for the 5th is my statement of the town condition and concert series contingency plan discussion.
Well, I
I'd like
talked to
to
Bonnie,
speak
and Bonnie,
again.
I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead.
She may not be ready with that
Okay.
information
All
to
right.
me until
Okay.
it's a lot, it's a lot of data she
Okay.
has to gather.
All right.
oh, go ahead, John.
Can
Yeah, Bonnie.
When Councilman Benton asked for this information yesterday, I said it's going to be part of, I had planned for it to be part of the budget process, which will be towards the end of February. If I know exactly what you would like, I can have it for the February 5th meeting. I just need to know what you want.
I need a
and
breakdown per person who has, say your name. Bonnie, how much hours did you get in overtime? How many hours did Lisa get?
For how many
hours-
years? For what years?
Just last year.
Okay, so this, actually, we have that information. This summary I gave you 2-3
Right.
weeks ago,
That's
those
the
are,
summary.
that's the summary, but it's based on real information.
Right.
So we can have that for the February 5th meeting,
Okay.
okay?
So put it on the
All
5th.
right. I thought, I was confused. I thought you needed it for a longer period of time.
No.
Great. Okay, no problem.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Nobody's gonna make a motion anyway, so put it on
Right.
for the 5th.
The 5th.
I would
My-
like,
Jan?
I would like to maybe ask a question. I'm not sure what overtime has to do with Christmas bonus.
It doesn't.
Um,
It
I
doesn't.
think we incur overtime because we have vacancies. And that when you have a position that's not filled, that creates more work for a position that is filled, which creates overtime. I would like to know what the turnover rate is in our workforce, and how much of this overtime is because we have vacancies in other jobs.
Well, this is an endless discussion in the sense that vacancies, overtime, the need for overtime, not the need for overtime. I think it's just getting the data, to look at all the data.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And just look at it all.
Bonnie, is it possible, Bonnie? Is there a second? Is it possible also to break it down if, say Kevin's got, $20,000 in overtime? Is it because he was short 3 guys? Could you put that data together for us?
Right, well, the department heads have.
Yeah, I saw that.
We'll get together.
Okay, great. All right, the reason, there may be a reason why there's overtime in those departments. And we just need to know that, that's all.
I
think the fact that we're tracking so close to what was budgeted is an indicator of exactly that. There's a certain amount of overtime that's expected. You work with a certain amount of attrition each year. There's regular trends, and nothing is surprising about our current level of overtime, except that it's less than the previous year.
my only comment is that
Can I-
we've created an expectancy on whether you call it a Christmas bonus or a year-end bonus or a bonus, and that really needs to be addressed. That doesn't have to be today, but it really does need to be addressed.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask Bonnie a question? Bonnie, is there any built-in overtime in a work schedule?
Well, fire and police have a pretty unique situation because they have shifts that have to be filled with a bare minimum of staffing.
Right.
So that when officers or firefighters are out, the way to, if they're out unexpectedly.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about if, for example, if I'm a fireman, what's my normal schedule? 48 hours, 2 days a week? So I have 2 days a week, that's 48 hours, and then I have 5 days off. 4 days off, so you're on a 2 on, 4 off.
But
So-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I work 48 hours then, so I get 8 hours overtime. I don't get 8 hours overtime.
Work a 212-hour schedule, right? 256 hours, you have to go over 256 hours in a month, right, Lisa, to get overtime. And that's public safety. We fall under a different part of FSLE.
The Fair Labor Standards Act is, you're exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act?
We don't have the same standard as a 40-hour employee. We're allowed to work our employees a little more time in a week before they gain overtime.
All right,
Per
so,
month, though,
Okay.
hour, and that's when they get their overtime.
But
Oh,
if I work 48 hours, if I work Monday and Tuesday, that's 48. So I get maybe another 8 hours of straight time. Is that what you're saying? Bonnie's saying yes, just saying no. I mean,
No, from what you just explained, I'm familiar with FAA regulations for pilots. You can fly so many hours per quarter, per month, and per year. And if you exceed those hours, you can't fly anymore, which is a problem American Airlines had with all the guys going on
Right, okay.
vacations. And that's the same type of thing that you're talking about.
okay.
But
Can I
Kevin,
get us
haven't-
back on
I'm
top,
sorry.
it's, you know, we're supposed to each be able to speak.
Right, go ahead.
Then we go back around again. I'd like to bring us back on topic. You know, we're talking about the bonus. Item number one, I think we've got apples and oranges. The apple is the bonus that we started discussing informally back in December and have not made a decision on it and keep pushing it down the road for various reasons. And then the salary and wage study. Pete Larkin and I, last year during the year, maybe we should call it a recess if none of the council member want to sit here.
Turn the air conditioner on.
He's here,
Okay.
he's still here.
All right. So we requested a formal professional wage and benefit study be done. Not an informal, the staff reaching out to all the neighboring communities to provide a bunch of information dump and then somebody figuring out how to collate it. And I strongly agree that we should have that data in preparation for this coming budget year. So I would suggest that, one, we have the staff make a recommendation for how to do, for contracting out to get a professional to do a wage and budget study, and we make that decision at the February 5th meeting. The separate issue is the bonus itself, and the bonus and overtime have nothing to do with each other. The bonus is looking at, it's the end of the year, that's what we were discussing, providing a bonus to the staff, recognizing their overall performance and service, and if you will, the town appreciation. It was kind of tied in at the Christmas period, but we did not get anything done there. I think we should provide the bonus. We don't have a COLA built into our program, our schedule. If we did a COLA, a 2.4% COLA would have gone into effect on the 1st of January. So those are my thoughts. I still think we ought to do a $500 bonus. I think we ought to go a separate process to do a formal professional wage and benefit study and have that information done with the idea to have it to feed into our budget process for the discussions this spring in preparation for our FY19 budget.
Well, as it stands right now, that decision would be for February 5th. If somebody wants to make a motion to grant a 1% of 300
We're in a
or...
workshop right now, we cannot make the vote, it's not an emergency.
No,
We can't have the rules and
there
change
is,
them as we do them.
no, this is,
Well,
I
this
would,
is
I would
not,
argue that, you know, this was something we should have done back in December, and it's now, we're continuing to push it back off into to February.
I agree,
would-
this should have been done before it ever became
an issue,
an
right?
issue. But I think this discussion requires a vote at the February 5th.
Well,
meeting.
my concern is we're going to go around and say all the same things again on February 5th.
That's the idea we're supposed to be avoiding with these workshops.
Well,
No, folks. One of the recomm...
I don't think we've reached consensus here today.
Well, we need to, because otherwise, you don't have to vote on it, but you got to, otherwise we're going to go around and say all the same things.
I
again
agree
on
that we
February.
should vote it on the 5th. I will have a vote on the 5th.
Your consensus is for an increase, I mean, not an increase, a bonus?
Bonus on, and we vote on what increase on the 5th of
Okay.
February.
You for consensus on a bonus? No bonus, okay. Your consensus on a bonus?
No.
My consensus is
A
a bonus of
And-
$500.
Okay,
I-
and your consensus on a bonus?
Same.
All right, well, that will
Yeah.
be on the agenda for the 5th.
Good
That
cop,
doesn't
bad
mean-
cop.
That doesn't mean it's been done. I mean, it's still,
Good cop, bad cop.
the Cabanas Beach Control discussion. I spoke with the chief. Once again, this was on the agenda at the request of Councilman Serrato. We had the presentation in November on the big Summers Beach experience. My conversations with the chief is that he needs a little guidance on a couple of things.
We're gonna show you a couple pictures, some of the things we dealt with on the beach. And what I need to know is what you're gonna call it. We don't know what to call it. Richard, if you'll bring up the pictures.
Kevin, I requested this because we're still having issues regarding cabanas. Now, I don't know why we seem to have
This
brushed
is,
over them
that's
in
what we're
November.
discussing right here.
Okay?
These are what our issues are right here. You're asking that right there not be allowed forward of the tent line. We're calling that a canopy. That is the current regulation.
That is
You
not
know,
a tent. I don't,
And that's where I'm headed with this. I'm gonna show you
He's
some more
trying to get a
pictures.
resolution of that.
Go ahead to the next one, please. That also has to follow the Cabana rules. I mean, this is some of the, you asked what was our problem? This was our problem. Go up to some parents and tell them they can't have that and that they have to be, that far back on the Cabana line because they want to set up a baby tent.
Kevin, I got a question for you though. I mean, the LL Beam has these little pop-ups like that for adults. So what if you come to a tent like that and there's an adult in there and not a child?
We very rarely have found that.
Okay, but I'm just saying that they're out there.
I understand that, but even at that is this big. It's this big.
I know.
It takes up as much as a towel. They're not very big at all, but yet I'm asking them to go set up with the 12 by 12 cabanas because they're.
It doesn't take up any more space than an umbrella, correct, guys?
Exactly, and there's where we're trying to get, that was, you asked what our problem was? That's an argument we had all summer long. Every week, every Sunday, and I need some direction on that. I mean, is that something that we want to regulate back to the Cabana line? I mean, I'm asking
Well, I
because
think
here's the problem. If we use common sense and allow that to stay there, we get multiple complaints. My phone rings off the hook that there's a cabana forward of the line. That's how ridiculous this has gotten with baby tents. They're complaining that a baby tent, well, how come that? And I'm talking about certain individuals that do this for a living.
Question.
Where
Right.
are your
Well-
complaints coming from?
They
Who is complaining?
Most of the time, it's the cabanas. The people that own the cabanas, they're complaining. They're visitors.
Okay.
They're here to enjoy the beach, but they want to leave their infant.
Is the people in the cabanas that are complaining?
Yeah, why is that allowed to go forward?
oh,
And that's what we're hearing. Or why do I have to come back to that line? I'm nowhere near as big as that. And these are sometimes some heated debate
Right, John?
on explaining that to them.
The question I have is in between the tents and these baby pop-ups. Yeah, first is, I would think that.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
comments-
I got
first-
one more I want to show you the next slide.
Okay.
That right there needs to be on the Cabana line. We're okay.
Yeah.
We're okay with that. That's a little bigger. That's for a family to have a picnic under. That's not what we're talking about, something that's protecting an infant from the sun or a baby from the sun. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about baby pop-up tents. But we regulated them just like their cabanas. And
My question goes into, and it's not quite that, but we have the mini cabanas that are about 4 foot or 6 foot, I'm estimating, probably about 6 foot, 4 posts down, and not as high as a 10 by 10, 12 by 12 cabana. Those are clearly not allowed forward of the cabana line, is that correct?
he's
Do you know-
got pictures. Show them, see if you got them.
Okay.
We got some more.
Yeah. Yeah, my general sense is common sense on the baby pop-ups, particularly, when it's clear that they've got babies in there and they're not adults in there, ought to be able to go forward. But the other tents, the 4-posted, smaller tents, this type of tent, that are clearly
Well, I-
beyond the baby
and
tent.
what I understand is, when you're talking about a pop-up, baby pop-up, they're this big.
Yeah.
I messed up. I worked the beach this summer, and I told people, oh, you're fine. If I can see over it, sitting in a chair, you're fine to me. I don't, that right there, if I sat down behind it, I couldn't see. They would be blocking your view.
Well, I agree at this point with your common sense guideline.
Go to the next slide, please.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we not allowed, is a person not allowed to put an umbrella or a blanket or a towel in the cabana line? Is that strictly for cabanas? You
No.
can't put a towel in that
No,
line?
they can do
You're
whatever.
kidding me.
Anything you want in
Oh,
there.
we can put
Yeah.
a towel in that?
Yeah, whoever takes that spot gets that spot.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it's a cabana or not. You're allowed to be there. It's just, most people are on vacation, don't want to run out there, throw their towel down at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Well, I
And
know
we got
that, I
cabana
know that some of the
companies.
people in the cabanas don't even like a towel in front of their cabana.
And you know what our response is to that? Sorry to Public Beach.
What's your problem
I'm
with
not
this,
going to
Kevin?
clear your path.
Kevin, what's your problem with this?
I'll let Richard take this one because we disagree, if we agree to disagree on this.
If you may, this is not allowed. This is, according to our ordinance, this should be treated as a cabana. We have a difficult time.
That's treated as a cabana.
That's treated as a cabana, and here's the issue we have. The cabanas are going well this year. And we had our best year ever with cabanas. The straight line, the trash can line. The problem, then the cabanas come early, they come at 7 a.m., they set up, that goes good. This family comes down at 11 a.m. and wants to be near the pier. And we go down there, sorry, you can't be here. You have to walk a mile down the beach with this
So in other words,
device, according to the ordinance.
Well, it's not a mile, Richard.
Well,
Oh, it's First to 27th Street.
at some times,
Oh, you said to find a spot, maybe, okay.
right.
listen, I've got a couple of comments.
I always said number 40th Street, plenty of room.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Well, I've got a couple of comments. Yeah, we were supposed to get feedback from the attorney to discuss whether or not legally we can ban cabanas. We still don't have that information. Is that correct? But let me tell you something.
That was to ban cabanas
Commercial.
overall or ban
Commercial.
commercial banners?
Commercial, yeah.
Commercial bans.
Commercial,
We're
okay.
trying to get,
Yeah. Did that get addressed in
listen,
previous years?
we've been discussing this for 8 years. And we've tweaked the rules for 8 years. And there's always something new that comes up. Last year, we had a cabana dispute problem. We're still having that problem this year. That hasn't been mentioned yet. Last year, you requested to hire a policeman, part-time policeman, if I recall. The council said no. But now you're having policemen manage emotional disputes, correct? Okay. That's not what the council wanted.
Well,
Let me finish my statement. Don't get defensive. What the council didn't want a police presence on the beach. That's what they suggested. Okay? We're still having problems with cabanas. It's not going to go away. Why do we keep on doing the same thing and then get the same result? That's the definition of insanity. If I had my way, I don't have any problem with children pop-up tents. Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, Ocean Isle don't have cabanas. Why are we different? People from outside the town, and you know this, Kevin, people from outside the town, they can get a nice little cheap condo in Calabash or Little River, order a tent, $400 a week, place it on our public trust beach, preventing anyone else from using that particular space, and they don't even contribute to the occupancy tax. Right? That's what they're doing.
Well, that's an issue.
They're not renting on the beach
That's an
because
issue.
it's too expensive. They're going to Calabash.
That's an issue of banning
Can
cabanas.
I'm not getting defensive.
No,
I
I'm
see
just
the
saying.
need for that. I have little kids. It's nice to have a place so I don't have to leave and go away from the beach. But
fine.
I understand that. I don't come to the beach at sunset. I go to Ocean Isle because we have the house over there. But we're not allowed to put anything on that beach anymore. So we spend less time there.
Okay,
You
but
know,
they
we
don't
don't
allow
go
that
to it
either.
as much.
They don't allow
baby
anything.
Pop-up tents?
That's, right now. it
Ocean
doesn't-
Isle, rather, I'm asking you a question.
No,
Do
they don't allow
don't-
nothing,
So
nothing
even
at
those
all.
little small baby tents, they don't allow?
No tents, no cabanas, no nothing.
Kevin,
A
look at,
towel.
Kevin,
And you can use an umbrella.
yes. Look at the trash that's generated on the beach. Now-
I work trash, so I understand
The
the
patrol,
trash.
the Turtle Patrol people pick up trash every morning, and it's tons of it. From what? Umbrellas?
No,
No. From what?
the cabanas.
Thank you.
I'm
And
gonna,
chairs
wait,
and-
But also,
I'm gonna call
also
a
the
point of order.
chairs.
I'm gonna call a point of order here, that we are not talking about whether cabanas should be allowed or not. If that's an issue that wants to be brought up, bring it up. What we're talking about here is solving a problem, an enforcement problem that the fire company has, and we ought to limit it to that. If you want to talk up banning cabanas or banning pop-up tents altogether, put it on the agenda and we'll talk about it. But that's not the subject we're on. We're on direction.
We're on the direction of being, this right here, I'm going over and enforcing as a cabana. That's not a cabana.
And that's what we ought to focus on.
Kevin, I got a question for you, though. If you allow that
Mr.
off
Mayor,
of
you're
the,
restricting the discussion.
Rich, if you allow that off of the garbage line by the water, aren't you gonna get hell to pay for it? Aren't people gonna complain all the time?
Surprisingly, you wouldn't think you would, but that's where I'm asking for forgiveness from here, because I did receive complaints that we were not enforcing that on people that had them this year. You know, we had to make a judgment call, and I went out there and I'm like, are you serious? I'm getting complaint. I'm having to take away, go over there and tell him, hey, look, somebody's complaining about a little tent or a tent being too forward. And I get over there and find out it's that. Or it's actually wasn't even that big. It was like a half a baby cradle that had a cover on it.
Well, I like.
But
to
it was over the height restriction when it was up.
I like to put a
So-
motion that Kevin and Rich use their judgment on these issues.
Well,
Second.
Thank you.
They've been, is the problem is that you don't feel that the ordinance backs you up with your judgment?
There needs to be a little,
Tweaking.
as seen appropriate or deemed by the official is what we need.
Mr.
And this
Mayor?
comes from my guys that work the beach.
Mr. Mayor, the issue here, just to clarify for everybody, is these don't meet the definition in the ordinance for the size regulations.
Right.
So what solution do you propose to fix the problem? I mean, do we need to update the sizes, or do we need to take the sizes out and make it a judgment
that whole
call?
line, baby pop-up tent, removed completely from the ordinance. If it's for a baby, and let's be honest, how many adults are gonna lay in that? The only thing you're gonna lay in that is your head and
So-
shoulder.
Thank you very much.
So then
And
laying-
I can get in there and tell them, hey, this is for babies only. You know, I can enforce that. I can tell you that you're breaking the rules. You know, don't bring that out there and try to curl up at it and say it's, you
Kevin, the
know.
only thing I'm scared about, what if someone puts a 10 by 10 tent out there and says, I got 5 babies in there?
That's not a baby
Yeah.
pop-up tent. There's a definition for
Okay.
it for a bat.
So how we word it is important.
Yes.
Okay.
So, what-
The town of Surfside Beach, South Carolina, has banned all cabanas except for the baby pop-up tents.
Right,
And that seems to be working well for them.
right.
I don't follow what's going on
Well, once
anywhere
again,
else.
if we're gonna
I-
ban,
and I haven't on that. I'm
if we're gonna
sorry.
ban cabanas, and you wanna talk about banning cabanas, that's fine, we'll put it on and talk about banning
I
cabanas.
have-
Not Kevin. Let's
No
just address
discussion
what
on
his
that.
concern is
I'm-
right now.
I've told you before, I see both sides of the cabana issue. Okay?
I
But-
guess my question is, do you have a problem with the baby pop-up tents? I mean, what is?
Not at all. I have
Okay.
no problem with the other cabanas though either.
We just need to address the language to
Bob,
reflect what you're
His-
doing in practice.
What I have a problem with, and I'll address this with the council right now, is every year we change the rules on these people that are coming to the beach. Every year we change the rules. We have done it for the last 3 years. We have changed something about our beach rules. And do you know how hard it is to keep up with that? When
You
you
have-
come in here just to visit for a week,
Well, Kevin,
and they
you're-
go,
you're
"Well, you
asking us
changed
to,
them again."
you're asking us to do it now again.
I'm asking you to give me a little more leeway as far as judgment goes.
Bob, I put a motion that you and I work together to write a regulation on pop-ups for baby tents, so Kevin could have a clear.
I don't have a problem with that. You don't really need it in a
Is that okay,
motion,
John?
We're not gonna act on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think common sense and judgment,
Can't do this, Bob.
Yeah.
There was a motion and a second.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but we're not,
Where the technology has happened, that 35, if it's over that, oh, that's 36. We have people that do that to us. And
You know-
that is the sad part of doing this, is we have
oh,
people
there's no question about
that
it.
just monitor the rules.
No question about it.
And make sure that we're out there doing our job. And I'm not gonna say who it is, but there's some disgruntled people
It's human
that
nature.
thinks
It's-
that we're not,
it-
think
it-
we're not doing our job.
There's a very simple fix, and in the 9501, if you delete the no larger than and the numbers high, and just have it say a baby pop-up tent is a small tent-like shelter designed and used as a playpen or sheltered area to protect an infant or toddler. Leave off the dimensions, and that puts totally in your judgment that it's used,
That is,
just leaving off the dimensions.
leave the dimensions off, and we'll take care of it. We can identify, and that gives the guys out there a little
It's
bit
very
more to
clear
move
though,
on.
Kevin, it's not, that tent is up and there's adults in there. It's not
a baby pop.
a baby tent.
Right.
All right?
What
We
about
got
a-
other issues if we find adults in there.
What about a mother with an infant breastfeeding in a shelter like that? And they do.
If she
sometimes
has
that.
the infant, that
Then it's fine.
justifies.
Okay. good.
If she's in there breastfeeding somebody else, we have a problem with that.
Well, that's, so, I think there's an easy fix, just drop the size dimensions.
I
and
agree,
give-
John.
All right.
Okay,
we'll-
Kevin?
We'll come
Yep.
back,
We
we'll
can
come
take
back
that.
with, for the 5th with appropriate
Fine.
language.
Mr. Mayor, what about the other issues that we seem to ignore? The trash issues? Should we cancel Cabanas?
What is,
What?
We're waiting for the attorney
Rich,
feedback.
Rich, I spoke before. The issue before us now is the direction for Kevin and baby pop-up tents. If you want to raise issues with regard to those, put them on the agenda.
Mr.
or the
Mayor,
limit-
I
Excuse
did.
me.
I did. That's why it's on the agenda. That's why
I'll read
it's
you
on the
what you,
agenda.
I'll read you what you said.
Why did you put it on the agenda?
I didn't put it on the agenda.
That's right, I did.
What it says is, Cabana issues for review. As a matter of interest, according to Chief Dempsey, there are issues that were not communicated to the previous council. Reportedly, we are continuing to have emotional disputes. If you recall, last year, Chief requested police coverage and presence to manage these events, which the council rejected, fearing a police presence on our family beach would be on the perception issue. That's what you addressed in your request. That, I just quoted the language from your email.
Yeah, and I discussed it.
Nothing
you're
about
saying
banning
that this is
cabanas,
about baby-
nothing about garbage. It was Kevin's
Oh,
issues.
come on, Bob. Come on, Bob, you're splitting hairs.
Oh,
no.
no.
Doing it
Wait a minute.
intentionally.
wait a minute, that's,
No,
Come
you have an absolute right to put anything on. I've told you this repeatedly, to put on the agenda, but make it clear what you're putting on there. What you put on there was Kevin's issues, and Kevin's addressed those issues. Now, I think
No,
we've
he
decided.
hasn't addressed those issues.
What, he stated what issues he has.
Kevin, the only question I have is regarding the police. And what type of situation do you call the police out to the beach where you can't handle it through the fire department or the beach patrol?
Anytime that somebody's getting,
Drunk, obnoxious.
and usually that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
Later
That's
in the
al-
afternoon.
Excuse me, Jan, real quick. And that's always been the policy, right? Even 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
I don't know what the policy was.
I'm just saying, if there was someone unruly on the beach, you don't physically try to get them off the beach. You have to call the police.
Well, I mean, we can call a police officer, and Ken and I are working on something that you'll see during budget that's gonna address a whole thing that's going on the island during the summertime. I think if, Joe, if I'm not, we're gonna probably discuss that in February at the budget meeting. Well, we are. We're gonna bring something to you, just because we've had some issues, and you know, well, I'll go back and, you know, say it. Our departments have had horrible turnover in the last 2 years, horrible. And these guys may have been working 1 or 2 people during the summer because of being just shorthanded. And that just puts an extra response of them getting to us if they're already, you know, on something else. So we ask that we have a police officer attached to the beach. I mean, I'm not over on the beach. Everybody looks and acts like I'm over there when there's a complaint. Otherwise, I'm in meetings with you guys most of the time, up here doing workshops and doing that kind of stuff. We're preparing for these. The people I'm putting on the beach, they're riding four-wheelers. They're just, usually we try to get some nice people. They're not trained to handle some of the situations that they've had to get into out there. And that's why I've asked for somebody who is trained, you know, more in handling that abuse.
So would he have his weapon with him?
Of course he would. Police officer's not a police officer without a
I just asked
weapon.
the question.
Okay.
We have always enforced laws on the beach strand. Every inch of the city limits is on the beach. What we did last year, so anytime there's an unruly person on the beach strand, we're going. If somebody calls for our help, whether it's them or anyone else on the beach calls for our help, we're coming. It's just not feasible for us to patrol the beach strand all day, you know, and not have that personnel on the mainland or on the physical land on the island, you know.
But Joe, there's also,
Head them to the beach.
usually there's an officer in or around that beach
Yeah.
all day.
So last year, what we suggested, what the chief wanted us to do is hire a part-time personnel to basically work full-time hours, but just for the summer on the beach strand with his crew, so we'll have that personnel all the time. That is what was not voted in, you know, the other time to do that. And one of the reasons has always been because we want a friendly looking beach and we don't want that police presence there all day and weekend. That doesn't mean you're not going to get the police presence there when you're called. I mean,
How many times a year do we have a police present on that beach because of a problem? A couple times a year?
More than you think.
Well, how many, Kevin? You should have that report for me. Can you get that to me? How many times
I
you
don't
had-
do police reports.
No,
That
no.
would be,
When your guys call for police help, you should
that
know
would be
that.
on their end. We don't track police matters.
All right, well, that apparently,
Only tracking I'll
Whatever-
do is if somebody's assaulted and I have to do the workers' comp paperwork.
whatever you're working on with the police chief,
Mhm.
include that information at budget time so we can go over it,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, and we're gonna have a presentation on that when we come
Okay.
to the budget.
So regarding the whole thing, Bob and I will sit together, write up what John mentioned. That was perfect. And we'll have that to you by next, the 5th, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask Dustin a question? Dustin, how much trash do you pick up from the beach related to Cabanas every morning?
Once again, Rich, I'm calling a point of order. This is a discussion of Kevin's issues. If you have these other issues, if you don't like Cabanas, and you want to ban Cabanas, or deal with the trash and whatever, you're more than welcome to put that on the agenda, but that's not what is on the agenda today. And we're going to be here forever if these issues keep getting, I was going to characterize the issues, but if these issues keep getting raised.
I will put it on the, well, we need feedback from the attorney first. Okay? As soon as we get that feedback, we've asked that question about a month and a half ago. And we
Fine.
still don't have an answer.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask if, a point of order question. We've been on this subject for more than 10 minutes, and everybody has spoken at least once. I would like to call the question, if that's possible to do when we have.
We don't really have a motion, but I understand what you're saying. Okay? Sorry I didn't get to speak, Kip. All right, the next item on the,
I'm back. I'm the next item on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Fire department staffing discussion. Although it's under Chief Dempsey, I don't think you requested it to be on there. Did you, Mark, is that yours? Anybody's?
Mine. That's mine, Mr. Mayor. The department of the town completed a survey comparing our fire stations with Shallotte, Calabash, Tri-Beach, St. James, Grisset Town, and Ocean Isle. To me, this survey should have been done before we hired 3 firemen. That's what you do in business. And I expect that to be done in government. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to cut this very short, and I want this on the agenda for the February 5th meeting. I am going to propose a hiring freeze for the fire department. We have more firemen than any other community in this town, in this region. I don't understand it. 17 firemen. The town asked for.
I'd like point of
Let
order
me
on-
finish my statement, please. Don't get defensive. The town asked for 20. We approved 17. We have more firemen than anyone else.
All right, we'll put it on for the
Oh,
5th. It'll be on
thank
for the
you.
5th.
And
Okay.
just so you realize, we don't have 17, we have 15 firemen.
Well,
And 2 chiefs.
We'll address that.
Who
We'll
were
address-
here.
No,
We'll
you
address
have
that.
17.
We'll address that on the 5th, okay?
Why
It'll
don't
be
you
on
count
the 5th.
yourself as a fireman?
What's that?
You don't count yourself as a fireman?
Am I gonna
Rich?
walk away from here and go respond to a call right now?
If you had to, you wouldn't do it?
Let's,
I don't know.
let's
I-
talk.
The only
State-
thing I'm leaving
But
for is
let's
a
talk
major
about it on the
catastrophe.
5th.
Okay.
But, I mean, I can't run to everything. I'm at county meetings, I'm at meetings here, so I don't count myself as a fireman. I'm a chief.
But you
I
do
run
go
the-
to
I run the
fires.
business.
But you do go to fires.
Yes, I do.
And if you. or
And that's
need-
the cool part of my
if-
job, to
If
go
you
into
were
the
needed
fire.
to go into a fire, would you go into a building?
Right now,
Say, a fire
Yeah.
today, and there was an emergency, they needed your help.
not a problem.
Mark, let's
Got the
talk
gear in
about
my
what we
truck.
talk about on the 5th. All right? I made a note that will be on for the 5th.
Fifth?
The proposed conflict of interest policy.
Mr. Mayor, I guess that's me again.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Lisa for putting all this together, the history and everything else. I found that very informative. I think it's a simple fix. Lisa knows what it is. I think it's using Grady's language for item number 12 on the policy that I'm trying to search for. And what I would like to do is to propose this change that Lisa identified and to include this as an item for February 5th for approval.
Is
Which
there-
page?
What are we talking about?
His proposed conflict of interest policy.
I know that.
John, 5D, second page, 5D, this is the
14 is the,
page,
Packet
yeah,
page.
page 13, I'm sorry, John.
Rich, will we be able to get that to everybody to look at?
Well, it's here now, it's just in, it's in 2 different pieces.
Right.
but
Yeah,
if you may not want to listen to me, but, and I don't have any dog in this fight because the council understands this. I'm not sure that the public fully understands it. The mayor only has the power that the council gives to him. So they could tell me that I don't have any power to do anything. But since I'm here and participating in it, in last fall, the same language was proposed, and I objected to it substantively and conceptually because there's a state statute that the legislature has passed that deals with conflict of interest for members of municipal bodies. My conceptual objection is, once you start defining it at a local level, you're creating a horrendous mess. Just to give you an example, on the proposed conflicts of interest policy that was presented to us. It's exactly the same as back last fall, except for the paragraph 12 that Grady had added. In paragraph 1, it references a North Carolina statute, 1423A1. Now, there's law that goes along with that statute. That is a penal statute. It's a criminal statute. It has nothing to do with municipal conflict of interest. The same with paragraph 2. It identifies what's a crime. When you have a codified, and we have codified, the state has codified their laws, where the legislature says, Chapter 1 deals with this. Chapter 14 deals with criminal activity. Chapter 163 deals with municipalities. Or whatever it is, 165. Chapter 153 deals with counties. And in this, as proposed, it refers to all these things that have nothing to do with municipal activity or activity of municipal officials. The Title 14, Chapter 14 of the North Carolina Code is a criminal statute. It is identified and titled criminal. It's not, it contains all the crimes, not just municipal. Another problem is that I have, I mean, that at 14 is referred to, Chapter 14 is referred to repeatedly in this. Chapter 133 is referred to. That paragraph, if you read that paragraph of the statute, what it says is what contractors can't do in dealing with municipalities. It doesn't say what municipality officials can't do. It says what contractors can't do. It refers to Title 153A44, which provides for the excuse of members on county commissions from voting. Nothing to do with municipalities. The only statute in here that's referenced that has anything to do with municipal voting is 160A-75, which is that one paragraph that the legislature has said there's an affirmative requirement of municipal officials to vote. And if you don't vote and you're not excused by the rest of the body, then it's considered an affirmative vote. I'm paraphrasing what it says. There's other statutes that are referenced in here. 153A-340G, that's a grant of power to the county commission. It has nothing to do with the municipality. Statute 153A-345 is referred to in here as to qualify the language. That was repealed. It doesn't exist. The Statute 160A-388, which is in the municipal section, deals with the Board of Adjustment, and it has absolutely no applicability to the council because it deals with the avoiding a vote where you are making decisions of a quasi-judicial nature, and the state legislature has said the disqualification of anybody other is on a financial basis. It's not, the point I'm making is that one distinguishes the standard for a Board of Adjustment to a Board of Adjustment, not to a township committee. I said my piece. I'm conceptually opposed to it adopting anything at a local level because it's going to muck everything up, and we're going to fight about this forever, whether an individual is in violation. Secondly, all of these statutes that I mentioned that are inapplicable, if you read the statutes, they're in this proposed language.
Excuse me, Bob, has Grady looked at this?
Yes.
He may not have read the statutes. I haven't talked to him about it.
Well, I make a proposal.
Can you let Bob finish?
No.
No, what
I
he's
just want
asking
to make sure
is.
that Grady has read it, John,
yes.
that's all. And if he hasn't read the statutes, let it go back to Grady one more time then.
And I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. And I think you're gonna find that he agrees with me 100%.
Well, let's do it then.
Because I don't know who put it together, but they obviously incorporated things that are totally inapplicable. Anyway.
That was Susan and Grady, Bob.
Yeah, It's inapplicable, I'm
What was
telling you. I don't think so.
I don't know, Mr. Schreiber said something. wrong.
He said it was
Maybe
Susan
my-
and Grady.
Oh,
But in any event, you're not going to take an action on that anyway. And we'll definitely go back to
Needs
Grady.
Go back to Grady, though.
I don't have any difficulty with that at all. But I did want to say my piece with regard to it, so you understand where I'm
Okay.
coming from. The climate control measures discussion. John?
All right. Give me just a second, please. This is the first workshop that I've been in, so I'm really not sure how it was supposed to run and what was going to happen and how it would work. For climate,
Be informal.
yeah, it's informal, but for climate control, I've prepared a couple things I'd like to talk about to introduce the subject and then determine whether we want to go forward with doing something later. So, if you would take one and pass it down. I think there's enough for everybody there. And so, what I'm trying to do, and when I propose this environment and climate change discussion, is to expand the discussion that the town council has that leads to a better understanding of our Sunset Beach community in terms of our environment and the potential impact of climate change on us, and identifies what we are doing, what works well and should continue, what can be improved, and what we are doing that we should not be doing. Sort of as background, when we discuss climate change in Sunset Beach, there are several broad areas as starters where it would be helpful to increase our awareness of what we are doing now and what more we could be doing. You know, in the long run, there is the potential impact of rising sea levels, considered in terms of decades. This may not impact any of us living in Sunset Beach now, but considering our low-level lands, it will in the future when we are transferring our property to our children, for example. We should start thinking about steps to mitigate this situation over time. You know, the kind of items to consider like shoreline protection, sand dune enhancements, higher bulkheads, things along those lines. In the near term, there's our ability to respond to the impacts of increasingly extreme weather activity. We've seen this year hurricanes, winds, rains, droughts, and fires throughout the country. And for Sunset Beach, the most likely scenario is a major hurricane. So the idea is we need to better educate on our preparations that we should be making, how we secure our property, how we encourage evacuations, how we plan for the recovery through that. And then there's day-to-day activities. These are steps the town, businesses, and our citizens are taking and can take in their everyday lives to protect the environment with immediate and longer-term impacts. So a general idea on how to approach this topic is to start with the information gathering, move on to an education program, and then begin incremental steps to improve or institute our environmental protection efforts. At the same time, we should work to integrate the lessons learned into our longer-range programs. In terms of information gathering, an easy initial step is to identify and evaluate what the town is already doing. Our intern, Amber Strickland, has begun this process by compiling information on what the town is doing now. The attached notes on Sunset Beach environment activities, which I am not going to read, but they identify our codes that adhere to the North Carolina Energy Conservation Code. They point out Article 12 of the UDO that contains our environmental regulations that includes programs for flood damage protection, stormwater management. She lists and identifies DPW programs on voluntary recycling that also reduces pressure on our landfills and contributes to, in our little way as a community, reducing global warming, if you will. It includes storm drain sediment collection programs that DPW runs, mosquito control, and how we adhere to the Coastal Area Management Act, which has a major impact on our building construction and what we do with our property. All of this feeds into developing a comprehensive education program that makes information available to our community. The topics should include promoting more voluntary recycling, encouraging hooking into sewer systems in place of septic tank systems, promotion of use of solar panels, upgrading individual home and business stormwater systems, expanding street sponsors to keep roads litter-free, and things like that. The Turtle Watch program that cleans the beaches every day is a very helpful program also. The program would include identifying how to best make use of technology and tools to disseminate the information and help inform and educate our population. Another theme for education is to better explain how public infrastructure projects include environmental protection components. These include the forthcoming stormwater project, state road upgrades like the bike paths and swales, and island sidewalk project, which is integrated into the stormwater project planning. So we're in closing. My intention is to encourage adding environmental and climate control issues to our public agenda, to start the discussion and increase our awareness and encourage broader public participation in our efforts to protect the environment. The discussion should build upon our community concern with environmental issues as demonstrated by the town council resolutions in recent years that opposed efforts to allow seismic testing, opposed offshore explorations and drilling, opposed wind turbines, and opposed the issuance of wind energy leases along our coast. And as a final disclaimer, I think the discussion that we have should be clear that that clearly supporting the previous Sunset Beach Town Council unanimous vote on August 7th, 2017, that Sunset Beach is not going to join the Mayor's National Climate Agenda. But there are lots of things we can do outside of joining that agenda. So again, I've just laid out a whole bunch of things and information, and my idea is I think that we should start a discussion and an education program in terms of how to go forward and make sure that we are doing everything that we can within our means to protect our environment. Thank you.
John, excellent. I think you made a point why we need an environmental resource committee, because many of the things that you discussed are things that the ERC committee could be working on, like recycling and those other issues, stormwater management. We have our own local Sunset Beach concerns, flooding. So
I agree.
It just reinforces the reason why we need to have an ERC.
I agree, that's excellent. The ERC committee could be an excellent source to help with those kinds of concerns. I would like to mention one thing when you talked about solar panels, and this is my understanding only. I don't know this for sure, so I will mention that I was told that solar panels are not allowed in Sea Trail in our town because of aesthetics. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
but
there's, and this is in contention right now, but Sea Trail has in their master declaration, as does Sandpiper, and I assume, I haven't read theirs, but I assume Sandpiper does, and any other planned community has architecture review standards. They have architecture review that the declarant appoints members of this committee, the declarant being the person that set up the project in the first place, that approves architectural designs, and there are different, for instance, some of the zoning standards are different. You couldn't build the same thing in Sea Trail that you could build area-wise, that you could build outside. And I think, I haven't looked at it recently, but you're probably right. There probably is a restriction against, because you can't have flagpoles except in certain places. You can't hang blankets over or towels over railings. You know, there's all kinds of stuff that are part of the common. So it could very well be.
I just mentioned that in that solar panels might be a problem.
Well, that would be part of the whole objective is to know what we can and cannot do, and then what's the best way to promote it.
And maybe we could educate those people as why they should change their...
That doesn't mean it couldn't be changed, right?
Right.
Right. Okay, any other discussion on the climate
I
control?
think it's a good start, John, very good.
The ERC rules we talked about, as I said, it was not my intention to go into an in-depth discussion about them, because you've seen them for the first time, and it was just my putting down ideas that, as I said, I want to reiterate, came from existing ERC regulations in North Carolina communities, other state statutes that I've dealt with, and rising out of some of the experience dealing with the prior Environmental Resource Commission. Out of the discussion this morning, or the presentation this morning by the two former members of the ERC, one thing, when we look at these, I'll sit down with Jan and as a former member of the ERC, and get her ideas on these too. I didn't intend that we would hassle them all out this morning, but conceptually, I want you to think, all of you to think about in my analysis of the issues we had with the prior ERC was the extent of the authority. Are they advisory or, and my understanding was, the mission was, that it was advisory. So it's a concept that you have to consider. One of the things I have in there is that the ERC is part of the application review process in a planning board application. That doesn't mean that they get approval authority. That means it'd be part of the technical review where they would advise the planning board, because the planning board makes a decision on development applications. That language may have to be cleaned up, but when you're thinking about it, think about, we have to distinguish whether we want them in a decision-making capacity or an advisory capacity, and how we characterize that. Okay? The proposed communications policy.
Well, are we
I'm sorry.
going to talk about that at all?
Well, if you want to.
Yeah, well, I'd like to make a comment. I agree with what Jan said, that the ERC, however we reactivate it, would be a good vehicle to handle some of the things I talked about. You know, in just very broad terms, I think when we work on how we are going to put together our guidance for the ERC, we need to start small, be clearly defined in what we're looking for, put specific objectives out there, time limits for task, clear town council guidance and approval processes to make clear. Like you've laid out the first thing, I find that it's probably a little bit too long, too detailed, and we ought to, you know, tighten it up, focus it down. But this is a very good start.
Well, you know, lawyers get paid by the word.
Yeah, I figured that. Yeah,
I would also like to make a suggestion. The beach town of Oak Island has a very, very good environmental advisory committee. They, in 2016, received a Pelican Award for that whole committee received a Pelican Award for their work. And serving under that committee is another committee of volunteer people from the community that get out and actually do the work, as an example, in a shoreline restoration project. They actually get out and help do the physical work that helps restore that shoreline. I would love to see that kind of effort in Sunset Beach. And I would like to, if, well, I guess we can't vote on it here, but I would really like to invite the chairman of that advisory committee to come speak with us and describe his program to us and how they go about getting things done. I think that would be a great help to us to hear how another beach community is doing such a really good job.
That'd be a good workshop topic.
I don't
Yes, it
I don't
would.
have any objection with anything that Jan said. A substantial portion of the language in that is out of Oak Island's, for those of you not aware, this is Oak Island's committee handbook. It's probably 50 pages. And their volunteer committees, what they have, they've got a tree committee, they've got a soil committee, they've got a landscape committee. And what I did in drafting this was to try and include, not create a soil committee, or but include some of those things in the responsibilities of the ERC. So their actual ERC is very, very limited in the handbook, but they've got all these other committees that are doing all these other things. So, and this is very extensive, extremely extensive. And I mean, I've got a copy of it if anybody wants to read it, but, you know, I don't have any difficulty but that, a substantial amount of the language came out of the whole handbook, not just the ERC portion of it.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we seem to be, what the ERC committee did previously was invaluable. And we seem to forget that. And if you listen to the two committee members, former committee members who came up, the issue was research. And the fact is that when you do research, you have to talk to agencies and others and faculty and engineers and a whole bunch of experts in the field. And I think what angered the committee was that they felt they were being restricted. I'm not going to review the history of it, but I think we need to be very sensitive to their research concerns, not to be restricted by the council.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It has to be phrased in a way that they're able to do what they're tasked with doing. The other thing that really I want to emphasize is we've really got to focus on what responsibility we want them to have, because that was to me, that was the crux of the whole problem, was that they exceeded the authority that they took it upon themselves to make direct contact after they were told not to. And so I think we need some pretty definitive rules. These are not written in stone. I mean, everybody's going to participate in what they are. So take a look at them, and Jan and I are going to work on them and come up with some kind of a amended. The next item is the proposed communications policy. This is another one of my creations. Where this came about was, once again, I'd like to be able to claim authorship of it, but it's a substantial portion is from other municipalities. And there was discussion among the council in public meetings about communication among council members in not avoidance, but in violation of the Open Public Meetings Act through electronic communications, where emails were being sent to groups of people that generated discussion among those groups of people that excluded the public, which is outside the concept of the Open Public Meetings Act. We had a closed session with Grady, our attorney, who went over it in substantial detail about what he gave us advice of what can and can't be done. Since that session, the conduct that was objected to has continued. I'm not saying that it's an intentional avoidance. I'm not saying somebody's doing it on purpose, intentionally to avoid the Open Public Meetings Act, but that's the impact of it. So this basically writes down in writing exactly what the communications policy should be, because when you look at it, it deals an awful lot with electronic communications. And Grady has seen this. I got his review of it at 9:30 last night, and the only two things that he changed in it was my two misspellings. And he filled in and I have copies for you of what his review was, and he filled in the language from all the statutes. I just named the statutes at the end of it, and he put in the language for all the statutes at the end. But I have a copy for it because I just got this morning. But that is what generated. Jan, do you have a copy? Yes. I do. Okay. That's what generated this communications policy. So we have it in writing. There's no question as to what, it's not just voice advice as to what can be done and what can't be done. Down the road, one of the things that I want to talk to Susan about, and eventually, is to propose something like this. That's a handbook that has all the policies in it. For those who may not be aware, the Board of Adjustment has a policy that most on this council probably has never seen, but they adopted because they're created statutorily. The planning board does too, because they're adopted statutorily. They ought to all be collated in some place, and this policy, this communications policy, should be incorporated in it as well. But once again, a substantial portion of it was patterned after Oak Islands, and although I'd like to claim total authorship of it, it's not totally mine. So I urge, once again, it's not a be-all and end-all. It's a starting point. I believe it reflects what Grady advised us. He seems to think so because he only changed, as I said, my misspellings. And we ought to be in a position to be able to act on it or make any changes on it. The
Put it on the agenda. Mr. Mayor, we could put it on, this on the agenda for the 5th meeting.
Okay.
I'm not going to split hairs. I don't have any difficulty with it. I do most of my transmissions by email directly to that. In the past, I have included the council, so just for information only and not for deliberation. And I'm pleased that the council does not respond, and I don't respond back to them. So, you know, there's not a person up here that doesn't believe in total transparency. And I'm just a little worried. We seem to be fearful of leading a paper trail and using the phone instead of email, because no one knows when you're on the phone, but they know when you use email. All my emails are public information. I just got a request from Lisa that someone wanted my emails that I sent from January 5th or something. I responded immediately. And anybody is welcome to do that.
Well,
you know, open government, the only concern that I have is that I don't want this to think of ways of avoiding it. I mean, I'm just concerned that it creates, I understand the guidelines, and I think they're not difficult to follow, but I'm just concerned about the potential lack of
well,
transparency.
they are difficult to follow, in my estimation. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
You
no, it is.
you have the right of the public to know what's going on and participate in what's going on. And things should not be happening outside of the public purview except in very, very limited circumstances, like attorney's advice and personnel matters. But when you respond, one of the common issues is responding to private emails and copying all council members. That's a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. You can, it is. Grady said that it is.
Even if you don't deliberate?
Grady's, because it engenders consideration. You're getting your point, even though somebody doesn't respond to you, another council member doesn't respond to you.
So then what we have to do is to send it to the individual, or?
Nothing prohibits you from.
It's not more than 3 or 2?
No, one.
One other council person. You can, nothing prohibits you from communicating directly with whoever emails you about anything you want. But, there's nothing that requires you have to share, but once you start doing it, then it leads to what under the concept of open public meetings is things are taking place outside of the public purview. And that's one of the things that's delineated in here, is that if there's going to be a dissemination to council members of something or other, it's got to go through the clerk. It can't be.
All right, so help me understand. I get a complaint letter from a citizen, and I think it should be
Addressed, right.
Addressed to the council and you.
Well,
As information.
I know, you can't.
No, I understand that. I'm just thinking out loud.
Okay.
Don't put me on the witness stand.
Okay.
So when I get that communication, which I think might be useful to the council, I would send that to Lisa, and I would, I'm talking in present.
Right.
I would send that to Lisa and put a little note on the email. Lisa, please provide this to the members of the council and mayor for their information.
And then a decision's gonna have to be made as to whether that can be done in accordance with the open public principles.
So Lisa sends that out. Is that a violation of the open
I
meeting
can't-
laws? It's public record.
You're gonna have to ask, yeah, it's public record, but the public's not
I
invited to
understand.
participate in the discussion.
I understand.
And this is what Grady advised when he gave us our advice. I mean, some of the questions, I'm familiar with other open public
Yeah.
statutes in other states. I can't speak definitively to North Carolina, which is a little bit different than what I'm familiar with, but, that question really needs to be addressed to Grady.
Yeah. No, it's not a perfect world.
No, I
Bob.
understand.
Mr.
But I
Mayor,
don't want us to be fearful. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Mayor, when I get an email from a member of the community or whatever directed only to me, if I feel it needs a response, and I always give some kind of response, I respond to that person, but I copy Lisa.
That's fine.
That's okay.
That's fine. Because it doesn't, the Open Public Meetings Act doesn't prohibit discussion with the clerk.
Okay.
It's just discussion among council members. And
Okay.
it's the invitation for discussion. It's not actually discussion, but it's also the invitation for discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
There are some of our
I'm-
citizens that will send blind copies to all members of the council. So.
Well, you can't-
So you can't tell.
Yeah.
Well, you can't afford,
tell.
you can't,
Yeah,
when you respond, just don't respond to all. Respond, when you reply individually.
I was going to point out also, there's nothing that prevents you from sending that to staff and then us coming back and reporting to council so that y'all can deliberate on it at a future meeting. So if you feel it's important enough to have deliberation on council, you can always direct it to the Susan or Lisa and say, can we get this on the agenda?
But at any rate, this delineates it all,
Right.
and we ought to be in a position to be able to adopt it on the second, because Grady's reviewed it, and as I said, he
Can
gave it
we,
his good ABC.
there's one item I think that should be added. I don't know whether it's a legal item or not. But when I first came on, I saw some of the emails that were being sent out that had a disclaimer on the bottom of them that pointed out pursuant to North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 132, this message and any attachments that may be sent in response to it may be considered public records and therefore are subject to public record requests for review and copying under public records law. The point being, what that does is that tells those who are not on the council, who are not fully cognizant of all the public record laws, that any email that they receive from a council member is subject to the public record laws. And I think we as a council should have that disclaimer on all of our council-related emails. I don't know if is there a
I don't know if I have
regulation or
that.
anything, but I think that is, in terms of making sure that our citizens know that anything we write is public record, that they just put that on the bottom of the email as part of the signature block.
Isn't that already on
Business,
No.
did you add it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, we're
Oh,
gonna
okay.
go with those.
Excuse
We're
me,
gonna go with
Mr.
those.
Mayor, it's,
Does anybody disagree with that?
I have no problem with that, John.
I don't have any problem with it. I just like to be open and transparent and not,
Part of transparent, making sure all the people know that anything you send out is a public record action.
Okay, the next item we added was,
Mr.
Counsel.
Mayor, it's 11 o'clock. Can we defer that to the February 5th meeting?
that's he's talking about the relationship with the business community. So for the next item that we have following the agenda is public comments. Now's the opportunity for public to make any comments that they want to request. Step forward, state your name and address, and please try and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good morning. Lois McClellan, 901 Windfall Drive. I had originally planned to speak to the Sunset at Sunset item that has been depleted from the agenda tonight. Karen Joseph is out of town, and I was going to speak in her absence. I've been on the committee for 8 years, and I was co-chair for 3 years. And I think it was the last 3 years that we had Mark as our liaison, maybe 2 years, okay. And he came in very enthusiastic, and we were excited about that. But over time, it seems like the enthusiasm waned a little bit. But I don't know if, and I'm not asking questions, I don't know if he stopped coming to the meetings or had to leave early, if it's a time restraint or maybe lack of interest. I give anybody the benefit of the doubt. For the last few months, we have discussed at our meetings that perhaps we would have somebody else as our liaison, somebody that would have the time to come to our meetings and make suggestions and help us out with the planning of our festival. So that's why we requested that this be put on the agenda for tonight. You all did receive a letter. I didn't write the letter. I did agree to email it to everybody. Just wanted to make that clear too. So at this point, all I'm asking is, I don't know whether it's the council that votes on this or if it's the mayor.
It's really the council, as I said
Okay.
earlier.
To appoint someone else, and I don't know whether Mark would have to resign, or maybe he chooses to remain as our liaison with more time available to us.
I plan on
But-
staying, and I promise to give you more time.
Well,
It's been a time restraint for me.
okay, well, as I said, I'm giving anybody the benefit of the doubt, but I think Sunset at Sunset has certainly been in the news more than it ever needed to be. It's a wonderful festival, and I'd like to see it move forward. Thank you
Next
so
meeting?
much.
When's the next meeting?
Fifth.
February 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I
Thanks,
ask a
Louise.
question?
Go ahead.
Does Sunset at Sunset have a mission statement and a vision statement?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, Councilman Harris mentioned that to me. I'm not aware of any either, and it was her suggestion that there ought to be.
It might be helpful if you developed that, so that there would be a better understanding between the liaison about what your goals are, what your vision for it is, et cetera.
Certainly can
That's
be
just a
taken into
suggestion.
consideration. I think that's a good idea. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you. Other public comment?
I must excuse myself. I have a important meeting. Okay, sorry. You can call me later and tell me what you said. Sorry, I have to leave.
He did advise me. he
Ruth
had to leave.
Reynolds, 703 North Shore Drive. I just have a comment on the cabanas, and I'll make it quick. But the pop-up tents for infants and small children is a no-brainer, I think. But when the commercial tents, when it presents a problem for 8 years, I think it would be time to eliminate it and see if it does help. And also, I think Council Lady Harris asked the question, can you put chairs in the line between the trash cans where the cabanas were allowed to be put? Is simply that you can't, because there was 2 commercial companies last year. I guess there were companies, I don't know, I asked that one time. But they would come out early and put up the whole line of cabanas all the way, where if you went out at a regular hour, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, there was nowhere to put anything. And probably 40% was left empty all day long. They put them up, and then when people call in, they say, oh, take so-and-so, give them a number. But a lot of them would stay empty all day long. And they do that so they can claim the space. So it is a real problem, and I think it really needs to be addressed. Thank you.
When we discussed it the last time, it might have been a cockamamie approach, but I tried to address that situation where where you would have a commercial tent. The problem is if you have a commercial operator and they have a contract with somebody for a week and somebody pays $300 a week, they're obligated to put it up at 7 o'clock in the morning, whether somebody's using it or not, because they have the contract with the people. Now, let me finish. Some of the language I suggested was that you restrict that as to occupancy somehow. Now, the language might have been a little distorted, but I understand what you're saying is that the issue, you're not addressing the issue, or maybe you are, you're not addressing the issue where they actually have a contract. You're addressing it where they're putting up, and then somebody calls in.
Yes, and I talked with a lady that she didn't call until noon, and they told her to go get
Yeah, I
so-and-so,
understand.
and it had been there all morning. So that's still a problem.
Yeah, I
Mr.
understand.
Mayor.
You're right.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next thing that we need to discuss is upcoming agenda items. We've got,
All right, let's go over this carefully, Mr. Mayor, so that we know.
we've got an overview. I'm going to give an overview of the town. Second, it is.
Will the council have an opportunity to see that beforehand? I don't know what the overview is, other than we're in.
Well, it's my overview.
Yeah, I mean, is it reasonable for the council to look at it? In other words,
I'll try and get it to
it's
you.
your opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try and get you ahead of time. Because, believe it or not, I mean, I haven't fleshed it out, but believe it or not, despite the activity that took place in the last year and some of the discord that arose in the last year, the council has done some significant things. And I think the public needs to be aware of those things.
No, I'm not.
But anyway, the next, for the second is, for the fifth is concert series contingency plan discussion. I may have more information on that. We may not discuss it on the fifth.
Is that more of a workshop item?
Yeah, it really is. It
So
really
maybe we
is.
should put it on the.
Okay, let's put that up
Second
for the 20th.
All right, you guys are going too fast for me.
Number 2 under upcoming agenda items.
All right, hold on. Okay,
Concert series. We're changing that to the.
oh,
the
okay.
20th.
That's going to a council meeting.
To
I mean, to a
20th.
workshop.
Right. The dredging update is on for the 20th. On for the 5th is the fire employee hiring freeze.
Okay, now what about the bonus structure, Mr. Mayor? I'm just.
Yeah, no, I'm not finished yet.
Okay,
Also, the employee bonus structure
all right, don't go too
and
fast.
the
Okay.
communications policy.
Now, is someone going to get the information from the attorney regarding Cabanas? I mean, that has been brought up 2 months ago, and I believe it was done by Councilman Benton, and we still haven't got an answer. And I think the question is, because I thought Grady would be here today, and
I don't think if he didn't have research, I don't know that he'd have an answer.
I had 2 questions for Grady. Can we legally restrict cabana vendors? I'll give them to you, Bob, and maybe you can call them.
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right? I have 2 questions here, Bob. Excuse my informality. I don't want to bore people.
What was the second one?
The second one is the town restricted from making a profit using the proceeds from the Sunset at Sunset to fund other entertainment programs?
It's not just Sunset at Sunset, any public event.
Yeah, in other words, if we change our mission regarding Sunset at Sunset and we somehow make a profit, can we use those proceeds, maybe to support the concert series. You know, I'm just,
You don't understand?
I'm trying to think ahead, that's all.
All right. All right, I'll try and get you answers to those for the next meeting.
Well, if you need this,
No, I wrote them down. Yeah.
Did you cover number 4? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, we didn't have a date for that.
Okay, I have a draft that'll go in, a clean copy to go into the town for Susan Parker, for Hiram, and for Dustin to review. And then based on their review, make a decision, you know, does it have to go back to the planning board, or can it come to us? You know, what's the next steps? And that would determine whether we bring it back up at the February 5th meeting or the February 20th meeting.
Right, since it's not a UDO amendment, it doesn't need to go to the planning board at all.
Okay.
And the only rules for that is if you have a unanimous vote on the first reading, it passes, otherwise you have to do a second reading.
So that'll be presented to the staff for their review, and, you know, if, we might be able to get it as quick as the 5th.
The question is the 5th or the 20th?
When's Susan coming back?
27th.
27th. We should be able to review it, and if there's no problems, we can put it on the 5th agenda, but we could always slate it for a workshop item if that needs to be discussed further, if you'd like.
All right.
Yeah.
But I don't see a problem with the 5th.
The Cetro Plantation Master Association streetlight request, that certainly wouldn't be the 5th. Dustin's not here.
March is what we're
March.
looking at for
Okay.
finalizing everything.
Well, we don't need a date for that. The minimum housing unsafe building ordinance,
To be determined.
okay, and a discussion on a dredging survey. That has no date.
well, yeah, that, I mean, wait a minute.
I think that should be a workshop after the presentation
Yeah.
from Moffett and Nichols.
All right, the presentation is the 20th. And bear in mind, the 20th is also our
Budget,
first
budget. review.
conceptual thing on where we're going. So it would be probably sometime in March, the March meeting.
Okay.
Well, then let's not put a date on it, and you can decide after the 5th, at the 5th meeting, we can do it the 20th. All right,
So, Bob, recap please for me.
all right, we
What-
have the
Employee bonus on the 5th. The fire department staffing discussion on the 5th. Now, what about the ERC rules? Will
they,
that be prepared for the 5th?
probably not, because we
No.
have to work on it,
No.
and you want to
And
discuss
then we
them
need to
more,
discuss it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we, well, should that go on then?
TBD,
TBD,
to be determined.
but quickly.
TBDQ.
All right,
We, at least, I discussed in part of the session there, a formal salary and benefit study. I would like to ask the town administrator to, you know, put together a proposal so that we could make a decision whether to authorize a study or not, so we get that information somewhere in our budget planning process.
well, we could, now on the 20th, we're going to have Susan in here with her easel, and she's going to have things on it, and then we're going to prioritize what we're going to do. It could be done, we could prioritize it at that time.
My question becomes whether a study could be done fast enough to inform our budget decisions this year.
Oh, that's what I mean, because they're not going to give,
Absolutely.
they're not going to give the department heads are not going to present. What the calendar is the 20th is the planning session.
Right.
April 2nd is the proposed draft budget. And then the workshop sessions are in April.
So
So we're not going to see a budget until April 2nd.
So if, on,
Not to stress or that, I mean, we voted not to do that last year, and I think the budget was $30,000.
yes,
It doesn't take much time to do a snapshot without getting into the nitty-gritty of every little thing, to get a snapshot of what other firemen and policemen, public works people, and women make in other towns.
I think,
We can do
I
that.
think that's superficial.
We can do that at budget time. I think we should do all these discussions at budget.
We can get that data now. That's all I'm saying.
And what I'm saying, I think we need
Rich,
a
you-
independent private professional to do the study.
I disagree with
Well,
that.
how we do it, I think it needs to be done. How we do it, I think needs to be discussed, but it needs to be done. And it's gotta be more than just comparing dollars. At any
All right,
rate,
Mr. Mayor, before we leave, Cabanas, it's to be determined because we're waiting for
well,
legal review.
no, I got that on. The question with regard to commercialization in Cabanas for the 5th, I'm gonna get you an answer on the proceeds from, to use at other public events. We got the hiring freeze, we've got the bonus structure, we've got the communications policy, we've got preliminary premises to be kept clean, concert series, no, that's the 20th, and my overview statement.
And a public hearing.
Are we gonna, well, why don't we put on?
We have a
the
public
20th?
hearing?
We have a public hearing for special event signs.
Okay.
And the improved community, business community relations.
Yeah, why don't we put that on the 20th, Bob, because that may be related to the concert series, because they used to sponsor the concert series, at least some of them.
All right. All right, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.